actually now, if you're following along on the agenda, reconvening to regular session, opening regular session, item number 4. So if you'd stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. It's good to see everybody here. Feels like we're getting back to normal a little bit. Item number 5 is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Sean?
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Keel?
Yes.
Mr. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Gobbins?
Yes.
Mr. Engling?
Yes.
All right, item number 6, superintendent's presentation.
All right, thank you, Board, for giving us just a second to recognize some very important people tonight for our superintendent presentation. I would like to introduce tonight a group of people that have done some amazing things around our district. As you know, this has not been a normal year in a lot of ways, and there have been added responsibilities on a lot of us. There's one group of people that have taken that and really taking that to the next level. And this group of people are our school nurses. And so we wanted to take a second to hit pause to recognize the work that our school nurses do each and every day. And I want to talk just really briefly about some of the things that have even impacted their world and changed. For example, when we first started to lay out the plan for return, we had to come up with a sick clinic and a well clinic. And so before we just had a clinic. And so now we have 2 of those. And so our nurses went right to it. And not only did they design where that space is going to be, but they almost did a little bit of remodeling in some of those spaces and made those look nice and welcoming in all of the different places. And they helped us to come up with a safe way to approach that, but also a welcoming way to approach that. We also had additional data that we had to collect over time, and our nurses even went beyond the data that we were being asked to collect, because they wanted to track data as well to make sure that they knew what trends were happening across our district when it came to COVID. And so they were tracking that closely and making sure that they were on the ball telling us what's going on. I am on a weekly call now with our nurses, which has been a real pleasure. That's something that I've not had before in my rhythm of work. And so it's nice to hear from them, to hear what's going on in their world and the pressures that they're facing on a weekly basis, but also almost daily with Kathy Hager on a regular basis, just making sure that we are on top of things and proactive. And it's just been great to be able to go to this expert group and say, hey, here's a situation that we're working through. I know I'm working through with Warren County Health Department on so many issues, but I want to hear just from our nurses, how should you approach this? How should we approach this? And our nurses have been so conscientious about that and address that in such a professional manner. So tonight's a night just to hit pause, to recognize, and to honor the nurses that have been doing so much behind the scenes. So I'm going to ask Kathy Hager to come up, and just to help me, I'm going to call names. We're going to give each of our nurses a certificate of recognition tonight. I'll have them stand socially distanced around this space here, and then if you have any fun questions to ask our nurses, I know when I was a principal of an elementary, there was some magic behind ice packs, and so maybe they can give you some tips on what the magic is in their building. So our first person to come up, Jennifer Davis. So Jennifer Davis, you come up. Let's give Jennifer a hand as she comes up. Shake your hand, Jennifer, but I won't today. Not allowed, but if you come right over here. It's good. The nurses do keep me accountable to not shaking hands and hugging. Melanie Rothenberg, would you come up, please? Thank you so much. I'll have you stand right up here as well. Thank you. And our next nurse to recognize, Sally McDonald, if you would come on up. Sally is at Mason Early Childhood Center. All right, Patty Gast, please come on up. Stephanie Hutchison, please come on up. Debbie Mogenberg from the high school. Please come on up, Debbie. With all the things, yes. All right, Kathy McVeigh, come on down. Come on down. Very good, Kathy. Welcome. All right, Jenny Knight from Mason Middle School. And Mary Bashir from Mason Intermediate. Thank you, Mary. And finally, Kathy Hager. Thank you, Kathy. Congratulations. So Tracy, I don't know if there's a way to, if they stagger themselves, that you
That's
could
kind
get
of
a
what I was
picture.
thinking. I was like, I actually, you guys are kind of, if we
We'll
move
get out
a
of the
few
way.
folks, Kathy, you come right in here. Yep, just, nope, just right here. And then, let's see.
Would you stand up?
That might actually, yeah, like there we go.
Oh, sorry.
Go this way then. That actually works. That works great. Okay, one. Oh, you know what, Stephanie? I'm missing you a little bit. I'm gonna have you come on this
Not
side.
Miss Stephanie.
Yeah, there we go. All right. One,
Yeah, can
Debbie,
Can you-
pull your, yeah, I know, it's not quite. We're not gonna be 15 minutes, so we're just gonna do it real quick.
Not really
One,
an easy
2,
task.
3. And then another.
Everybody
One,
smile?
2, 3. I can see who's really smiling. Those crinkles around the eyes. Thank you all.
I don't know if there are any questions from the board or comments, but this would be a good time before we send them on their way because they are busy, busy people.
I just got shut down by Kathy McVeigh. She said, no questions. I know better, so I'm going to suspend my questions. But I just want to say thank you. I mean, you know, a lot of people are doing a lot of things, but you all are, you know, you're showing every bit of your high quality. Every one of you has something that you contribute here at Mason other than being a great school nurse, and we just appreciate it and couldn't do all this without you, so thank you.
Yep.
My coworkers have been phenomenal. They haven't complained. They've worked night.
Hey, Kathy, come to the mic. Come to the mic so we can.
My mouth was big enough. My coworkers have been phenomenal. They haven't complained. They have stepped right in there, you know, working tirelessly. They have just been great people, great nurses, and I am so happy to work with them. I'm very proud of them. They're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Kevin's comments, obviously, you know, goes for all of us on the board here. No year like this year has ever probably exemplified how valuable you are to our students and our whole community. Really, helping us. You know, you are very much on the front lines as we are navigating the new challenges of having school in a pandemic. So we appreciate all the work you do, and you know, we know you're here for the right reasons and for our kids, and we really, really appreciate that. So thank you.
Especially on top of just your old day job, right? I think about especially because my experience is in the younger two schools and dealing with how many times, you know, we got calls or notes about a visit from somebody with an upset belly or whatever, and having to deal with call parents and say, I think he's okay, but maybe you can talk to, you know, you're probably still experiencing that and doing that with grace and love for our kiddos. And so we just thank you for all you're doing on top of what you already did for all our families. So thank you.
I'd just like to add, through the years, this group has served this district and put right in front and so willingly. You've been one of the most flexible groups that we've had working with our students, because truly with your role, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And I'm just so appreciative of your perseverance through all of the unknowns. That's the hardest to deal with. So thank you for your service.
I just want to mimic what everyone else here has said. You're on the front lines, and thank you for taking the risk to take care of our kids. And Mrs. McVeigh, you were the nurse on on staff when I did the orientation with my daughter who's a freshman, and I loved how you just punched it home. You're wearing a mask, no excuses, just be quiet, walk on. That's not exactly.
It wasn't me.
Sassy Kathy.
Thank you,
We'd say
Desiree.
that's probably it.
Let that be known on the record. Very effective, apparently, because my daughter came home after the first school. She said not one person was not wearing a mask.
Nice.
They are wearing their masks. They are.
Absolutely.
And I thought that may be one of our biggest challenges of coming back to school, and it turned out not gonna lie, be an issue. So, thank you.
I think the administration, too, you guys have been very supportive, and I thank you so much, so much.
Well, you're all rock stars, and we know that you're really busy, and you're here before the sun even comes up. So if you would like to break at this time to head out, you are welcome to that before we move
But
on.
not before another round of applause.
Yes, thank you very much.
Do not mention my name one more time.
This is official in the record. Live
Good news,
forever.
it'll just be on the internet forever. Yeah. All right, while our guests are stepping out, I'm going to go ahead and move on to item number 7, which is hearing of the public. And since it's been a while since we've had public participation at a board meeting, I'll just reiterate that this is the portion where our community is allowed to address the board directly. Each person is allotted 3 minutes until the total time of 30 minutes is used. And in order to prevent disclosure of students' or employees' private information, we don't allow any complaints about specific employees or students of the district during this public session. And lastly, if you are a member of a resident of the district, that's also a prerequisite. But I've got the folks who have filled out these forms. As you take the podium, if you would just state your name and your address. And Sean will keep the time if he lets you know when your 3 minutes are up. Just to know, we'd love to hear from you. You can carry on the conversation beyond 3 minutes, just not in this meeting environment. If you want to give us a call or email, we'll be happy to discuss with you beyond those time constraints. So without further ado, our first speaker is Susie Hummel.
Hello, my name is Susie Hummel. Address is 6643 Park Lake Drive. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. What I'm speaking tonight about is what everybody's talking about, the whole quarantine. My daughter was quarantined last Monday, a week ago Monday, and I want to share with you our experience and then end with a couple calls to action for the board. This is a bigger problem than what I knew it was until my daughter was quarantined. But before I get started on that, I want to commend Mr. Cooper, the administration, the teachers, the school nurses, for all the hard work that you guys are doing on behalf of our students. Everybody in the Mason system has been fabulous to work with. And I've talked to a lot of people over the last week. So we got a call last Monday saying that our daughter sat next to someone in her class who was positive. When I asked my daughter if she was wearing a mask, she said that she was. And when I asked her if the person that turned positive was wearing a mask, she said, I asked her what the teachers do when somebody's not wearing their mask. And as it was just said in this meeting, she said, I don't know, it's never happened before. They are all wearing their masks, and several teachers have confirmed that they are all wearing their masks. But regardless, even though they were both wearing masks, my daughter was quarantined, as well as other students that sat around this person. What I want to focus on today is I want to make sure, and I'm sure that you guys know this, but I want to bring it to your attention as a parent, of the mental health impact this is having on the kids. As a result of the quarantine, the mental health impacts of the students have been enormous. The students that aren't being quarantined, they sit in class and they keep wondering, am I going to be the next person called to quarantine? Now, I know that over the last week, Mason has changed the system of how they let the students know if they're going to be quarantined, which I think was a very positive change, but they still are they wonder if they're going to be the next one quarantined. For the students that are quarantined, there are enormous stresses. My daughter has, and several of her friends that have been quarantined, cried for many days in a row because they were afraid, they were worried, they didn't know what was going on, they were embarrassed because they kind of had the scarlet letter on them now. There's been increased stress because of having to learn how to temporarily navigate online learning. Some of the teachers have been great about it, but other teachers just aren't equipped to do that, and they're teaching to kids in the class as well as online. Oh my gosh, that was 3 minutes already? Okay, so I want to.
Susie, normally we cut you off, but could you just wrap it up?
Okay,
hit
okay.
the points, and then we can obviously talk
Yep.
in it.
Okay.
And by the way, this portion of our meeting, it's a little awkward because we don't typically engage in a dialogue, but after everybody speaks, towards the latter half, we will probably address this with some comments, but
Okay.
if you could wrap it up, we would
Sure.
appreciate it.
Sure. So my daughter's an athlete. She's a soccer player. She's missing 4 soccer games. There's a lot of mental health impacts on her and her friends. The Ohio Department website, there's very few kids that are getting sick, and when they do get sick, there's very few that are impacted, greatly impacted. So my call to action for you, one of the responsibilities of the school board is to advocate for the families and the kids. I implore you to help Mr. Cooper in advocating hard to have the quarantine rules changed. Clearly, what I haven't said yet, but clearly the data is showing that what Mason is doing and what other Warren County schools are doing is working. I talked to a Warren County director of nursing this morning, and she said it is not being transmitted in the schools. So I implore you to help Mr. Cooper advocate for the change. My other call to action for you is to establish a process to protect kids from being quarantined more than once. That's my biggest concern with my daughter. She goes back to school Thursday after quarantine, and who's to say she doesn't sit next to a kid on Thursday and have to quarantine for another 2 weeks, and then she's out for an entire month of school and misses her entire senior varsity soccer season. So those are my 2 calls to action for you. I appreciate the time, and I hope that there's some changes made soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hummel. All right. Our next speaker is Mr. Ray Schreider.
Good evening. Kevin, look forward to seeing you at Crossroads sometime soon again.
Won't be long now.
Yeah, you're right. Connie, last time I was here, you may not remember me. It was 15 years ago when I spoke to the board. Rest of the board members, thank you so much for your leadership. And to the signature, Dr. Cooper, I love your tie that you wear all the time. Okay. My son was also quarantined. It was very hard on him, which we all know. I have talked to Principal Boyd. I've talked to Jordan, Robin Jordan. And what I asked Robin today is what I would ask you is, I know you're fighting hard for the kids. I know you're with the health department trying to change that 6-foot rule to 3 or 4 feet like you were told earlier. I don't think that's going to happen soon enough. In my opinion, the only way you can protect the kids is to go hybrid. And there's so many different models. Of course, there's going to be questions with the union on what's expected with the teachers. You can do things within your system, I believe, with how much great leadership that you have, that you can figure out the time that's needed for the teachers to change their protocols with Google Classrooms, where they can teach half of the population, the other half comes in, whether it's through a week, 2 days, Wednesday, maybe Wednesday's a day for the teachers to get together and learn and how to get through this process. But truly, We cannot protect our kids unless we separate them. And this will continue to happen. Cooper, my son, texted me today, Dad, I'm in a small classroom with 25 students. There are 4 other athletes in here. We don't know what to do. I said, Cooper, you know how to be polite, you know how to be respectful, you need to speak up for yourself. Your teacher. And what had to happen, because when I asked him, did things get moved? He said, yes, but it was hard because other students who didn't really care or don't care. By caring, I mean the quarantine would not bother them, non-athlete, okay? They had to get up and move and help us out, which they did. Now that's a big process, in my opinion, for a 17-year-old to have to do. And that's what's going to have to happen if we don't want to keep quarantine. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Schreier. Our next speaker is Joy Molinari.
Good evening. Well, there's a theme tonight. Obviously, it's the quarantine. That's what I wanted to discuss. I have not had a child go into quarantine yet. We did request to go online when the cases shot up. We were denied. I wasn't completely surprised by that, knowing the disruption that would potentially cause. It did take 2 weeks to find out that decision, so that was a little bit concerning. But at the same time, that was about the time that anyone who would be quarantined was out. So understanding the stress that caused, I really felt for the kids that had been quarantined. But really my bigger concern is just that I do feel that we had to make a decision in July whether we wanted to be remote or come back in the building. It just seems to me that, particularly as it pertains to the high school, there was updated information after that choice was made that perhaps I missed, but I don't feel that anything was followed up on. And had I known some of those changes or some of that information would have been clarified to me as a high school student or with a parent of high school students, I would have opted to go remote and just avoid going into the building altogether. What is going on now is completely disruptive. These kids are sitting in fear in their classrooms. I jokingly today with a friend in text, she likened it to the Hunger Games. So, they're waiting. They're just waiting to be picked off. That's not a way to sit in school. That's not a way to learn. Half the time you're in your classroom, you're not even focused on the lessons because you're so worried that you're going to be next. So from where I sit, I see that what we're doing now, while I appreciate the hard work that everybody has done, I mean, Jonathan, Mr. Cooper, you have just been like heroic in all of this, and the fight that you're taking all the way to the State House is so appreciated in the district. But to reiterate what was just said, I feel like we're running out of time, and I do feel like those changes probably aren't going to happen soon enough, and the disruption is already taking place. So if we're really talking about the safety of our students and our teachers and our staff, and in order for them to truly be able to follow CDC protocol to, prevent the spread and be 6 feet apart, I don't see how we do it at the high school without going to a hybrid and limiting the capacity in the building. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Molinari. Next speaker is William Kaplinger.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Kaplinger, William Kaplinger, 196 Coma Drive. I, too, have a high schooler and a 6th grader also, and my high schooler was one that was quarantined. So just wanted to kind of touch base with everybody to know kind of what that is. And Dr. Cooper, I've talked to, emailed back and forth. I've talked to the health commissioner of Warren County, kind of explaining kind of how it's affecting the kids. Again, I can tell you about my kid and that lived 2 weeks in my basement, missing anything, extracurricular activities, Went into the, actually, I was at the last board meeting I was at was in January. My high schooler was awarded with a perfect score of the ACT. So again, smart kid, went on quarantine, got the phone call on Labor Day, went on quarantine the next 2 weeks, left school on that Friday before Labor Day with, truly 100% in every class. He's now got a D in a class, a couple Bs. Truly, the education that he was receiving remotely in this quarantine phase, and or the mental health of that is truly a bear on his academics. So truly, yes, he missed his extracurricular activities. Again, that's a big thing for him. But with that, the education is now, he's behind. He's catching up on a whole lot of homework. Yesterday, when he found out about, things that he needed to get done, at the end of the day, the intermittent piece of education, we're just going away for 2 weeks, is a struggle. And as I talked to Dr. Cooper, if it happens again, as Ms. Hummel said, like truly, how far behind are you then? I mean, at the end of the day, you might be able to climb out of it, but at the end of the day, there's a whole lot of other kids out there that may or may not be able to climb out of that. So truly, I just want to make it aware to everyone that kind of the father side of what you're seeing in your basement in 2 weeks of quarantine education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplinger. Our last speaker tonight is David Charpentier.
Good evening, I'm Dave Charpentier. I live at 8794 West Plain Drive, Mason, Ohio. I have 4 students in the district. One of them is my stepson, who is also put on quarantine. He happened to be put on quarantine the same day as Bill's son. And Chase is an outstanding student. Oh, by the way, I am smiling the smile of a parent of a teenager, which is to say it's not much of a smile sometimes, but then the smile of a parent, the teenager who's in quarantine is even more pained at times. So I had a grumpy teenager who is a 4.3 GPA student, has 2 AP classes, and upon returning from quarantine is behind in his AP classes that we pay money to have him be a part of those AP classes and take those for college credit. If we talk about the student as a whole, he's missing, in quarantine, he misses that opportunity, right? As a family, we made a choice for all of our kids to be in school because we believe, we live here. You guys know, all of you know personally, my involvement, my engagement in Mason Quality and why we want to be here. And we want our kids in school because it's where they learn. It's where they get the connection, the things that matter here. So we want them here. If Chase goes on quarantine again, that's a quarter of the semester. He's out. Missing instruction. So I implore you, my ask of you is to continue, push every bit of energy, political capital you have to find a way for our kids to stay in school. Find ways for the quarantine to happen, maybe for some of these student athletes that meet House Bill 410 requirements to keep attendance, because then at least he gets half of his whole student health, right? He may not get the academic, but at least he can participate in the co-curricular. Push with Jonathan to get the state to look at our data to keep our kids in school. The 3 feet is clearly working for our kids. Find ways to do that. I know some have advocated for the half and half. I think that would be disruptive and difficult for our kids, but I think that's better than our kids, as someone aptly described it, participating in the Hunger Games. Our high schoolers need this. Our high school students need it. Our student athletes need it. Our band members need it. We have young ladies who participate in tennis who are going for a 4-peat in state tennis. I would love to see them not have any of that disrupted of this. So my ask of you is do whatever you can. And we are here as a community to help you in any way we can make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Charpentier. Those are all the forms that I've got tonight for public participation. We don't typically speak as a board immediately following the public participation portion of our meeting. We typically save our commentary for the end of the meeting. Given the theme that is sort of common to all the comments, though, I'm going to just kind of take the opportunity while you're all here, rather than keep you here in suspense for what we might think, just to address the theme of the quarantines and stuff like that. First and foremost, we made decisions in the summer with the information presented to us at that time, and also with the restrictions and the guidance that we had at that time, to the best of our collective abilities, obviously. We, I think, are relatively unique in our plan to offer full-time in-person learning as well as remote learning, at least in our region, if not the state at large. And as part of the efforts to maintain that and to keep that offering at the Mason quality level, we've been diligent in collecting data. And I say we. When I say we, you can assume that I'm talking generally about our administration and our phenomenal team of leadership with Mr. Cooper, Ms. McCormick, Mr. Petrie, Ms. McCall, Ms. Brennan, Mr. Bevan, Ms. Carson. Everybody who is in our leadership team is working on this stuff around the clock. And over the course of the month that we've been in school, they've done a phenomenal job of capturing and collecting a lot of data, and keeping an eye on that, and presenting that not just to the Warren County Health Department, to our state governor and state health department as well. So as a lot of you know, it is not simply a function of some kids on teams missing out on sports that has resulted in things like last night there was a story on WLWT about Mr. Cooper, calling the governor. It's not because we've got, a couple kids here and there that, it's senior year and they might miss. That stuff's obviously important. That's important to you as a family. It's important to us as a district to see, kids passionate, pursuing their passions and things that they want to do. But that doesn't drive our decision making by itself. What is of greater concern to all of us is the data that we have seen reflects what has been mentioned here tonight. I think that the transmission of COVID-19 in our schools, in our classrooms, where we have a very controlled environment, it's been very controlled, and to date I don't know that we've seen any of the folks who have been quarantined respond with a positive case as a result of being in those close confines. So the best we can do is take that information, present that data to the powers that be, so to speak. To the extent we're able, we're working with our local health department, and we're exploring the level of local control that we have. But the bigger picture is our decisions are driven by the evidence and the data that we have. As that data changes, our decisions may change. But the health and the safety of our students and of our teachers and our staff and everybody in our Mason City Schools community is one of our top priorities. And if we felt that was going to be compromised by some of the actions and some of the things that have been discussed here tonight, it wouldn't be something that we would be talking about. But we feel like we've had a very limited number of positive cases. We've seen we've seen relatively no spread within the schools, within the classrooms. And so we take that data, we present it to the folks up in Columbus and in Warren County, and we do our best to present them with a fuller picture of information, particularly in our district, but it also informs their decisions at a statewide level. So that's kind of the universe of the comments that I've got on that for tonight. I know that the urgency with particular circumstances varies. For some, it's senior year. This is the last season. This is the last time they'll be in an extracurricular. We hear that. We understand that. The decision to go to something like a hybrid model is something that we are constantly talking about and evaluating. But we're also evaluating intermediate, options and choices so that we don't necessarily disrupt the entire in-person experience just for the sake of something that we might be able to address with a intermediate response. So with that,
Charles,
that
real
being
quick,
said- yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
I'm remembering that our meetings are now carried live, and to the extent that there are parents watching online for this particular purpose, I get the sense that they might hop off, which I understand after this. So I wanted to take the opportunity just to make sure that there's to point out that there's a distinction between the 3-foot distance with masks in the classroom and then the 6 feet with the positive case. I want to make clear that those are kind of two different, we're talking about two different things. In consultation with the health experts and the health department and the state of Ohio, everybody is comfortable with the plan that we made to come back into the classroom, and we got feedback from the scientists and from the health departments that 3 feet with a mask is okay to be in school, and that is safe with the other protocols that we're taking, and we're seeing that borne out in the data so far. The dilemma that we're facing is the CDC guidelines on when you should quarantine and the decisions that are made in light of that guidance, telling us that when there is a positive case and if you were in close contact defined as under 6 feet period for longer than 15 minutes, the health department is telling us that we need to quarantine. So I just want to make clear that we're talking about two different things. There's safety of carrying on school, and then there is the question of when you have to quarantine. And both are obviously highly important topics, but the fact that we have a lot of quarantines and we have this issue that parents have talked about tonight does not suggest that it's not safe to be in person in our schools. I just want to make sure that our parents hear that and know that it is a big problem, but it's not a problem that we can't keep kids safe in the health sense, in the spread of COVID sense. So I just wanted to clarify that for anybody who might be a little,
Sure.
Because it's confusing.
That's right.
For sure. So.
I think at the beginning of the school year, in the summer, we talked about, health and safety. If COVID-19 spread was the only consideration when we talk about health and safety, and health and safety is obviously a goal, we wouldn't have in-person instruction at all. But we know that more goes into the health and safety component than just the COVID-19 spread. And we've heard, about the mental health and wellness. We experienced that firsthand this past spring. We've heard about that from our community all throughout the summer, the desire to come back in school. So we've done our best to honor that. As we see the ability to balance the spread of COVID-19 with other health and mental wellness components to the safety and health factor. Again, collecting the data that we can, presenting it. We have the utmost confidence that kids are healthy and safety in our classrooms and in our walls, but we're exploring whether or not there's calibrating that we can do in concert with what the restrictions are legally for our district to be able to do that. So
let me just add too, we know the urgency is off the charts. So all of you have complimented Mr. Cooper. That's great because that means you've watched the frenetic pace that he is attacking this with. We, if we didn't have that dynamic, we would be taking a different personal approach. And we are behind him, we are supporting him, we're augmenting when we can to help. And we're always within an hour of making a change if we can. So there's not like, hey, we're gonna wait for 2 more weeks till we all get together. This is on a real-time pace. And so I'm glad everybody recognized his work here because frankly, he's not getting to a lot of other things. And that's okay, because that's the situation that we're in. But we understand the urgency, and I know just about every one of your kids and the role they play, and we know the importance of the experience they're having and the feeling that it's the one time in their life and it's going to pass them by, and that's a heavy weight on us. So I want to add to their comments that in addition to what they said, the urgency is high and we're not waiting, for administrative, you know, times to pass until we meet again or anything. And we can meet that way if we need to, or he can make a call immediately. He's got our support. So I just want you to walk out of here knowing that this is not a cycle that we're going through. This is in real time. So.
And I would think the global pandemic would be a decent excuse to talk after the public hearing portion of the meeting, if there ever was one. So we appreciate you indulging us.
Connie or Desiree, did you guys want to weigh in? Or anything? I don't want to cut you off if you have.
The only thing that I would like for the community to know is that every member of this board and every member of the administration is determined to give all of our students the best education we can give them, regardless of what's going on elsewhere in the world. Right now, we happen to be presented with a pretty ugly and significant situation, and the worst part about it is the people who are supposed to be guiding us don't really have all the answers. At this point, most of the time, I feel like they have less than half the answers. But it's important for you all to know that your child's education and the success of us being able to educate your child in this environment and keep them well is our top priority, and it is really taking up the time of our administrators who run all the buildings and run all the programs with their staffs in their buildings. And I just can't emphasize that enough. So to the people that came and spoke tonight, I appreciate your feedback. It's probably more important on this subject than most subjects we've had speakers about over time. But yeah, again, we're trying not to work our superintendent to death. I wish the governor and the health departments across the state would feel the same way, but I really believe our staff is doing probably one of the better jobs of all school districts in the country right now. And I don't say that lightly, but it's important for me to know that our families know where our first and top concern is.
I just wanted to let the parents know how much we do appreciate the window into your home. We have the numbers, and we have the data, and we have, you know, the school policy, but to hear what's going on in your home really adds a whole new dimension to what you're dealing with and what your children are dealing with. And like I said, I think we have really good data that shows that 3 feet with a mask on, they seem to be safe. There's no positive cases coming from that. And fortunately, I think Mr. Cooper has Columbus's ear on that, because it's the first time it's been a controlled environment, and we can produce data, you know, to show them that this isn't necessary. Hopefully, they will change that, and they do know the urgency of the situation. But just the real stories, I think, is just as important as that data. You know, the perfect SAT or ACT score, and now, you know, to be in a class because of a 14-day quarantine. That is heartbreaking. And we all feel the urgency to help you keep your kids safe, but do what's right for their education as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Desiree.
I'd just like to add one more thing. I didn't mean that to sound like I was slamming the county health departments across the state of Ohio and the state folks as well. They really are trying to do the best that they can do. It's just the unknown is creating such an increase on workload for our staff that it's troubling. I mean, it just is. Honestly, Jonathan, I don't know how you and your staff are getting all the data analyzed, and this will come later in the meeting in a committee report. But I was very impressed with the data that we're gathering and that we are utilizing. Our staff is actually utilizing the data. And we'll share more about that later, but I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point to make. I think that, you know, we've had great partners, and our leaders are doing the best that they can as well. We are in a very, very many ways, we're a really unique case study here. We're the largest high school in Ohio to begin with, but then you add in the component of, in these circumstances, who around the state is comparable to us in terms of the size, the number of kids back in person learning, full-time, 5 days a week, with the parameters that we have set up. There really aren't that many comparable cases and data points for the state to look at. And so in a lot of ways, we are trying to fast track their knowledge and be partners with them. And we appreciate how responsive they've been and the court they've given us and time they've given us to provide them with our information. So again, thank you everybody for your comments. Thank you for the window in, as Desiree mentioned. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and take a pause here at the end of our public hearing portion. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. We've got some other items on the agenda, but they are typically administrative in nature. So this is typically a time where we take a pause and let folks move on with their evening. So if you'd like to do that, feel free. Thank you. The next item on our agenda, item number 9, is non-district funded positions. Do I have a motion?
Got it. Got 8.
Oh, I'm sorry, number 8. Yep, sorry. Item number 8, resolutions. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
This is our appropriation resolution. As part of our compliance with Ohio budgetary laws, we have to approve this each year. We do this in September. We're required to submit it to the county auditor's office by the end of September. So this helps us meet that compliance, and also it's just part of our general budgetary processes.
Thank you, Sean. Any other discussion? Sean?
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Batchey? Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 9, non-district funded positions. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Sean?
Mrs. Batchey?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 10, contracted personnel, independent contracts. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Sean?
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchey?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 11, administrative personnel, superintendent's recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd like to just recognize on item 11 under resignations, just want to thank Amy Hall for her leadership and growth, and leadership specifically in some of our diversity, equity, inclusion work, as well as being assistant principal and some of the things that she's been able to bring to our high school. One of the things that I always enjoy working with Amy on is the when she brings the community in on the day where all of our kids get to select different options to see community members in action for careers and different pieces like that. So I just want to recognize and wish her the best on her her next step. She's actually going into a job, kind of a dream job opportunity that came up that she's been looking at for quite some time. So we're excited for her, and we want to wish her the very best on her next chapter.
We're always sad to see people go, but, we thrive, and, we try to create an environment where everybody's learning here, including our professionals, and, there are only so many spots and so many opportunities to do, where your growth, to stay in Mason and do where your growth has taken you. And so we're sad to see Amy go, but thrilled that she is growing in her career in a way that she has really set out to do. So congratulate her and tell her again that we'll be sad to see her go.
Yeah, very excited for her. It's bittersweet for us, but I'm sure it's an exciting opportunity for her. Any other discussion? Sean?
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy? Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 12, certified personnel, superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just always want to recognize people that are choosing such a big decision for retirement, and to move to that next chapter is always a big decision. So I just want to congratulate Pam Jones and Rob Matula on that decision and their next steps, and just thank you for letting us know that that's their desire and their plan, and that we will support them on that journey as they head into that next step. And I think Rob will keep coaching as far as I know, but we'll see how that goes next. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Any further discussion? Sean?
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy? Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 13, certified adjustments of salary, superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
Just congratulations to these teachers. Thank you for their continued learning and desire to continue that process. As Matt said, we'd love to see our folks continue to grow and to see our teachers continue to pursue the next level. That's exciting stuff, so we're excited to see and congratulate all these folks that are on the list today.
Thanks, Jonathan. Any other discussion? Sean?
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy? Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 14, supplemental personnel superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Sean?
Mrs. Batchy? Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 15, resolution for hiring non-certified supplemental personnel superintendent's recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Sean?
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy? 5-0.
Item number 16, classified personnel superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Sean?
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy? Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 17, certified personnel additional duties. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion? Sean?
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy? Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 18, classified personnel additional duties. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Sean?
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy? Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 19, new and revised board policies. This is our first reading of new and revised board policies.
Yeah, if I could just highlight, just a reminder of the process. Quarterly, we get recommendations from OSBA and looking at policy updates. This time, most of the policies have two major influences. There is an update in the law, Title IX law, so there's new language that's been added to this, and you'll find that in your notes that I shared with you, so you'll see some of the highlights there. Our team goes through that, makes the recommendations, gives it to the board, also the policy committee to review, and then you have time to read that as well as the public and can see some of those. And then there was also updates with our law that addresses all the timelines that have happened with COVID-19 that are kind of changed some of the timelines and regulations that we've had to follow. That change has also been updated in here as well. There's a few other things that we've tweaked, but nothing, a lot of it's language this time around that's aligned with the new law. So just want to make sure people understand there will be a second reading at our next board meeting.
Yeah, and I would just add that in here, one of the topics we talked about was bringing the board back into the expulsion process. So this is the first reading of that language that's been a priority for us, so.
So the board will be a part of that process. That's right. Thanks for pointing that out.
We don't move to, we don't have a motion at this time on these. So item number 20, action items, superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll highlight a couple, and then, Sean, if there's anything else to highlight that I miss on this, feel free to jump in there. But want to highlight a couple things on here are transportation-oriented. When we have students with special needs that have different assignments, we have different transportation opportunities. So you'll see some of that show up on here, and I know that Todd and Mark Merzanowski work on securing that with Jody Bergman, and so that shows up on here. There's also this building substitute agreement. This is an agreement. One of the things that we've heard from our teachers as well as our administrators is it's hard to always find subs. And right now we're in a season where maybe it's not as hard, but as we get closer into later in the season and especially into spring, it's harder to secure subs. So this is one strategy that we have devised to put in place where we have raised some of the funds in that for that sub for that per day if they commit to being here on 4 of the 5 days of the week. And so that's what we're trying to get, that commitment, so that we have consistency and we also have some security of having subs in the building. And so we have a couple other strategies I know that we've discussed with you that we're thinking about for later, but this is one of those strategies that we're trying to put in place to address
Just to
that.
repeat for anybody who's thinking about being a sub, we're raising the pay in return for a commitment to be in a building for 4 days.
Yeah, so there's a
in
commitment
week.
level, but we're also trying to be very strategic in making that more attractive as well. So please, if you're out there and you're watching this and you've ever thought about being a sub at Mason City Schools or anywhere, this is a great place to try that. We're trying to put some different tiers into there to make that more attractive for people who will commit to being subs.
We do need better marketing than this meeting, though. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. I will mention that Circle Tales, the process, because it's always nice to know. Circle Tales is part of our mental wellness approach with our kids is we bring in, for the first year, it's a trial run. It's like an interim internship for the dog. Dog comes in, makes sure it's a good fit in our environment, and then we commit to the contract the second year. So that's kind of how that works with Circle Dog. It's a therapy dog. It's not the same. There's different levels of trainings for dogs. This is a therapy dog, so the dog is in the building and helps students out getting from place to place. One specific example is I have a 4th grade son who has trouble with transitions, and we had it was funny to us afterwards, but not so funny in the moment, where he was having a hard time making a transition. And I won't go into all the details, but it gave us a chuckle for a second and gave the teachers a run for their money. But they were able to bring the dog in and get the kid to transition out of the behavior that they're going through, interact with the dog, move on to their next transition. And so it serves a lot of purposes. I'm not sure if it serves more our kids or our staff, but everyone loves having Lucy as the dog in that building, and then Hibbs is the dog that's on internship here at the high school right now. So if you're here, Hibbs, and we also have Orion, who is also a dog here with our police department. So we're trying to really give opportunities for our kids to connect with, right now, dogs and other things as therapy opportunities as well. So
I had the chance to meet Lucy when we did a walkthrough at Mason Elementary, and you can tell that she's already hit with staff and students, so it's a great opportunity.
Let's hope that internship blossoms into a full-time job there.
We're watching Hibbs closely.
We'll have an evaluation and exit interview at the end of that internship. Thanks, Jonathan. Any other discussion? All right. Sean?
Mrs. Batchey?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 21, Treasurer's Report. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Couple things to highlight on here. A minute ago, we talked about the appropriation resolution. That's the expense side of the ledger. Item C on here is our certificate of resources. That's on the revenue side. Same concept. Again, just different side of the ledger. A couple other things I will highlight. Item F, you see some new funds in there. I think Christine McCormick is going to talk more about this broadband connectivity grant here in a minute, but that's a nice opportunity that she worked hard on to provide some funding for families here locally. And then also the CARES LSTA mini grant. Thanks to Judy Stewart on that one, middle school media center specialist. That was a grant that she applied for and allows her to, in the library, to invest in additional ebooks and resources for some of our option 2 students. Last thing I'll highlight, item G on here, again, our donations. If you look down through here, not the first time this year that we have seen some donations, not just monetary, but also in this case, you'll see some things, some PPE, some hand sanitizer, those kinds of things. So again, we appreciate whoever it is, community members, Hamilton County ESC, the Warren County. We got some stuff from them as well, from Centos. So we appreciate the people and organizations around the community that are helping support our staff and our students and our families. So thanks to them.
Thanks, Sean. Any other discussion? Sean?
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batching?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 22, committee reports. We had our policy committee meeting, or I'm sorry, we'll start with the Arts and Activities Council.
That Arts and Activities had one item, a play that was approved, and that was the only agenda item for the meeting.
Awesome. Finance Committee?
We had a meeting, actually a virtual meeting here a couple weeks ago, and talked through some opportunities that might be coming down the pike in terms of economic development, some tax abatement type issues. So nothing formal to bring yet, but more just kind of keeping up to speed with where things are at. So that was our main topic in the last Finance Committee.
Thanks, Sean. Policy Committee, obviously we had our first reading of some new policies tonight. Mason Foundation.
Mason Schools Foundation, yeah. So Tracy, fill in if I leave out any details, but this Saturday is the Mason Schools Foundation Gala. This year it's obviously going to be virtual. So want to make sure that it's on everybody's radar and that everybody goes and signs up. We can give you the information, but you go to a website. There, you could even scan a QR code, but there isn't a ticket to walk in the door, but for a donation, which is part of a donation that you would normally make to be a part of the event. In return for making that donation, we have a memory box that people put together to help you enjoy that moment, and that this year you can actually share with your family, and you don't have to get dressed up. You don't have to have the stress of having the perfect cowboy costume or anything like that, or rent a tuxedo, or even wear a tie. But there are 2 ties, 3 ties. Those are the first ties I've seen in a long time. But you don't even have to wear a tie. You can wear your PJs and sit and experience the event with your kids. You can order food from the Manor House. And we're really excited about the ways that the team putting together the gala has thought through to create an awesome time and a memorable experience, despite the fact that we're not going to be together. And so I took a look today at the auction items too, and I think they look a little bit better, or like more more exciting as a virtual bidder than they did last year. So I'm actually really excited, and I'm gonna begrudgingly share that with my wife, who is super competitive with online bidding, with silent bidding, although she's a little bit more aggressive in person because she sees somebody walk over, and that's a little different. But yeah, so anyway, we're planning to watch with our family. We're super excited. This Saturday, the event actually starts at what time, Tracy? I'm vamping.
So at the Facebook Live part is at 7.
Yep.
But meal pickup, if you want to purchase another complimentary thing, a partner of ours who's been terrific, the Manor House, has been such a super supporter of the foundation for years, and of course being able to meet there in person. But if you, during a lot of the pandemic time, a lot of people realize they have some really terrific catering. So families can go and pick up for $50 either a delicious chicken meal or a pasta meal. You can add on a bottle of wine if you'd like, and that begins at 5:30. And when you go there, you'll get your memory box and all of those things, and then you can jump on at 7 and watch the little, which I think you may have a little part to play in that.
Steals and
Mr.
PJs
Steele.
in the video.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, we've talked about this as a foundation, and I know some supporters of the foundation have talked about the fact that this is a tough year, but it's so great to have the foundation helping us make school as normal as we can make it. And so some of the really fun events that they put on are happening, and for our students, and that's really exciting. And so this is our chance to give back to the foundation that gives us so much and helps our teachers do incredible things in the classroom that otherwise we wouldn't have the resources to help and support them in doing. And specifically this year too, there are going to be some specific grants that are earmarked to one of our big rocks, our inclusive excellence work. And so we're really excited to make that a specific ask of our community, to set aside funds to support grants that support the work that our teachers are doing in that specific place of inclusive excellence in our classroom. So super excited. If you need the information on how to sign up, let me know. I'll send it to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Facilities Committee?
Yeah, we had a facilities committee meeting recently. We talked several of the continued wrap-up items on the middle school, some HVAC opportunities that lie ahead, and I just want to commend Todd and staff for kind of the diligence. You build a building. I think we cut that ribbon. Gosh, seems like a lifetime ago, but it continues on. It's still in its final phases, all the final projects, and so thank everybody for that. And then the HVAC, I really appreciate the long-term look we put on those equipment systems across our 1.6 million square feet around here, and it's not small, so it's important to keep a long-term view on it. So that was the topics we hit on.
Thanks, Kevin. And finally, Student Achievement Committee.
Yeah, we met this morning at 8 o'clock. Desiree and I serve on that committee together, along with Amy Brennan leading the group. And as this is the first meeting for this school year, we kind of introduced all of ourselves to each other as a group. We have some at-large members, and we haven't always had at-large members, but I do think that's a great idea, as well as members from our buildings. And we focused on one of the OKRs that Mr. Cooper is keeping us so focused on this year, and that is how to keep our students feeling physically safe, emotionally safe, while supporting them as learners. And I was really impressed, as I mentioned earlier, with the responses that we got from people who have stepped up, have taken new positions to support online learning, quarantined learning. How does it change our curriculum and our scheduling when we have some students learning not coming into the building at all, and some that are coming into the building, and others, it's just temporary. I mean, in 2 weeks' time, they can be called on to respond to a different learning environment, and the teachers are called on to also respond to a different environment with more or less students. And I was very impressed with the data that was gathered from staff, students, and their families, and that we are actually going back with Amy's support for this team. We're going back as a district, and we're looking at what happened, how did people feel, what did they get out of it, what did they not get out of it, and actually asking the questions, how can we make it better? How can we fix it? If one student is falling behind, so I've got 98% in a given category, I need to pull out that other 2% and look at them. And our staff is really doing that. And I was very impressed with the meeting today, with the people and their commitment to what we're trying to do. And at the end of the meeting, we had ideas generated from everyone, sent in. I was on a Zoom call. A lot of us were. Some of us were present here in the Harvard room, actually. That's where they broadcast it from. But it was a great meeting. And I know some of the ideas. I was looking at some of them. I'd log off just a few minutes early. But I did see a good number of them. And it was really impressive how some people were coming up with the same ideas. So we really are trying to be on the same page and helping all of our students and all of our staff survive this global pandemic. And Desiree and Amy, feel free to add to any of it, but I was super impressed for a start to school year.
It was a very good meeting. I was, outside of the meeting content itself, I was impressed with how you were able to organize the hybrid meeting. I know a lot of these things are just new, and maybe not to you, but for me, I was impressed that it went seamlessly, really. And like Connie mentioned, a lot of the ideas coming from the members and the group mimicked each other, and a lot of the theme was, we were forced to do this because of the pandemic, but I like this. This is working. This is, but for these circumstances, we would have probably never done it, and it's a good idea to consider, continuing in the future. And I mentioned that at the last meeting, and I think one of the things was the phase-in process, the orientation process, and a lot of those things. So, yeah, very, very nicely done on coordinating that meeting.
Great team and excellent summary. So I could leave it at that. Thank you both for participating. It was our first hybrid meeting in that sort of way. So we had about half of the team or committee participating virtually, and half were here in the Harvard room. And so it was a great way for us to live some of the realities. Really, our teachers are also trying to figure out, as they're supporting students virtually who may be quarantined, and also in the classroom, and they have real empathy for all of those sort of, both the opportunities it creates, but then also some of the challenges. So I appreciated all of the contributions. A great conversation.
Thanks, everybody. Item number 23, legislative update.
We do have, I'll give you a quick summary of some of the things that are out there, if that's okay. And if you have any questions, I'll do my best to navigate those as well. There is a Senate bill out there. It's a Senate Bill 358. This is an extension on some of the COVID extensions that we have discussed already. They're hoping to get some movement on that. They do not think there's going to be any movement before November 3rd. So that is kind of sitting out there, but a lot of that will impact some of the timelines for our future for the rest of this year and how things play out. So that's out there right now that we're watching closely. There's KRA and third grade guarantee assessment. We have asked for some flexibility on that, obviously, because not everybody, we can't implement those the way we have before. The KRA is the kindergarten readiness assessment. The third grade assessment is also something very difficult. When you have students that are online, you have students that are in person, you have students going through quarantine, it's really difficult for us to do the testing. If we do have state testing, one thing we are asking is that they do not tie state testing to report card or
Anything.
anything that's going to be a punitive measure against local districts. If they do it, it's to see, it's only used to see like what impact has it had, and do we need to adjust the curriculum in the state because of how the pandemic has affected all students in Ohio. That would be the only way that would be okay to do something like that in our opinions as superintendents. It's not something that we're looking to advocate for more testing, especially during a time where we're already going through a lot. So,
Jonathan, is there talk about flexibility in teacher evaluation too? So let's say that worst case scenario that they still somehow hold the data out as a punitive measure for districts. Are we looking for separate relief for?
There been movement for that specifically to take those measures away, so that we're just focusing on the rubric itself. So
Yep.
that is something that we know
Great.
There's a lot of good things that have happened, but there's a lot of things that still need to come to play. Obviously, there's a lot of politics at play in general, so it's hard to get these to move forward. There's been some major disruptions at the state level in the House, as you know, with stepping into that position and householders stepping out. So that has also caused a little bit of change in some of the pace, some good, some bad. There's also on here House Bill 305. I believe, Sean, that's the big new fair funding, when they're looking at just how schools are funded. They're trying to propose that again. That's back up. It used to be called the Cup and Patterson proposal or funding bill, but I don't know if there's any.
Yeah, that initially came about a year and a half ago. There was a whole committee that did a lot of work on that. It did not make it through in the current biennium that we're in, so, but they are working on tweaking and amending that and possibly bringing it back in the next biennium. So that budget cycle process will start here approximately in February, so we anticipate we'll see, potentially see more of that before the end of the fiscal year.
And then, as we've watched closely the state report card, we didn't have assessments last year at the end of the year, so what will they do with the state report card? A lot of questions about that. I think there's a lot of people calling for them to rethink. I mean, this is the time where if they're going to hit pause and rethink through what assessment, the purpose of it, what it's for, what's the purpose of a report card. I mean, this is a time to rethink that, and so we're calling for them to rethink some of those things so it's not a gotcha or a list of schools against each other. And then the last one on here that I'll just bring to your attention is we're still watching Ed Choice. If you remember, we moved out of Ed Choice when they kind of realigned. Remember, if you remember, it seems like 10 years ago, I was able to go up and testify at the state committee that they had on this and just ask them to reconsider, and I held up our banner that came from them, from Ohio, that said, you're the top level that you can earn for your school, but yet they placed us on Ed Choice, and just the conflict of, like, how does that make sense? And so we were able to move forward on that, but now it's kind of frozen, so we're off of that list, but there's a lot of other schools that are still on that list, and there's not an assessment anymore from last year's data for them to come off of that list. So this is more of just an awareness to all of you that that's still a conversation that's out there, and obviously Senator Huffman is the one that is driving those conversations. So just to bring that to your awareness. And then you mentioned earlier, we are asking the state to adjust the orders that they have in place to give new direction to the local health departments to keep within the safety regulations that we've already established of 3 feet and align the protocol of quarantine with that safety regulation of 3 feet. So instead of the 6 foot, just align those pieces and continue to look at our data. So that's something we've asked at the state level as well.
Thanks, Jonathan. Item number 24, administrator commentary.
I was thinking about this earlier today. I know our hearts are with the Moeller community as they grieve the Michael Curran, recent grad there, and it's something that our school community has also had to stand beside families when they have had to walk a path that is just not supposed to happen. Your children are not supposed to die before their parents. And I know that for us in our community, watching Jared Camacho and being able to walk with their family, but also to see our community's outpouring of support within 24 hours of raising over $12,000 to help support their family, and just want the Moeller community to know as well that, we're often rivals, and times like this make sure that we all just, in a time where everything feels a little bit chaotic and crazy, it's also so important that we're continuing to extend that love and grace to all as they walk really, really hard paths.
Well, this marks our 4th week of full-time students in our buildings and online enrolling, and that feels somewhat momentous in this most unusual of school years that we've experienced. And thinking about that, I just wanted to take a moment to really recognize and thank our educators, our parents and our students who have done an amazing job of adapting to a school year like no other. Thinking recently about a teacher, I shared a student achievement committee today actually about a teacher I saw on that first full day with students, and this is a teacher with over a decade's, of experience working with our third graders, and I said, well, how was your day? And she said, it was great, it felt so good, but I have to tell you, I felt like a first year teacher all over again, just figuring out where do people sit and how do I manage sort of all of those dynamics of the classroom. And I think that's a feeling that many of our teachers have felt, even in supporting in-person learners where we think we know how to do that, but our teams and our administrators and our teachers have figured out so many new routines to make sure that we have those safe environments that we are all really definitely in the learner's seat this year. And a special message of thanks, we have just over 3,500 students who are learning online this year. And so many staff members who have pivoted to figure out how they also now are teachers to online students. And it hasn't been easy. It's not what we have known and built, decades upon decades of experience to do. It really is a new model of teaching and learning that's required a lot of flexibility from our teachers and certainly our families and our students as well. But it's amazing to see the kind of ingenuity, the creativity that they brought to it. I was able to hop into an online physics class with Laura Shepard, a science teacher here at the high school earlier this week, and it was actually first thing Monday morning. She says, they're a little quiet this morning, but I said it was really amazing to see how she is using technology creatively to be able to still create that learning experience for students, working physics problems on the whiteboard and flipping back to being in front of the students, and they were using the chat to be able to sort of indicate which questions they wanted to work on. So all of these things where I think a year ago we might not have imagined exactly that could have happened. And it is not easy, and so I wanted just to pause to really thank our teachers, our families, and our students for working through that. It's been amazing to see that that innovative spirit, the persistence of working through, and just the grace that we're all giving our hopefully ourselves and each other as we adapt to this new model of learning.
I just wanted to thank our staff for persevering through some difficult times. The start of the school year, meaning that our staff absences overall are down, even with our reduced number, in comparison with our reduced number of staff in-house. And I want to thank the board for approving our building sub, because that's one of, as Jonathan mentioned, one of our immediate solutions to try and help make sure that the staff that is in the building gets the support that they need. During our first three full weeks, MEX had a 95% fill rate of subs, MEs had 100% fill rate of subs, MIs had 93%, middle school 91%, and the high school 81%. So with the exception of the high school, those are the typical, actually those are lower than the typical norms at the start of the school year. So we're continuing to look at solutions to try and help make sure that our folks here have the support that they need, and also thanks to the community for stepping up. We added some more new subs to our sub list this week, so we'll continue to work on that.
I'd like to recognize our superintendent. A lot of times superintendents don't get a lot of recognition, and he clearly is a member of a small group of educational leaders and superintendents. But just a lot of times in that area, the status quo really, everyone moves at the same pace, and watching Jonathan jump out to be the first with our transparency of exactly what's happening on the inside of our walls within the buildings, and then second, just not accepting that all these kids can be quarantined, that maybe we need to do hybrid first. He could have taken a lot of easy routes, but instead, he spent his whole weekend into last week trying to get the governor and his people, holding them accountable of, hey, we need your help. We really need you this time. So seeing the leader do that, which is going to change education for everyone, if he's able to accomplish that, it's reassuring as someone who has to follow the leader that he has to more take those extra steps and spend the time doing it.
I want to start with just thanking, in addition to all of you, Tracy Carson. I think that she has positioned our
district so incredibly well. Just when you think as controversial and as upset as families are, when they still come here and they praise everybody first before they say what they have to say. She does a brilliant job with our district. I mean, I'm always in awe of the level of transparency that we communicate, and she knows exactly what to say and when to say it. So everybody thanks people, so I'm just like, the other thing is we did receive over $78,000 from Ohio for a broadband connectivity grant. So it enables us to take care of our free and reduced families if they have a need. We are not, the way we use our process is actually work through our counselors to make sure that there is a need to be able to do that. And then we are also looking at putting a couple in some buses. What we don't know is if we shift into RLE, where will the need be? So we're kind of trying to anticipate where needs will be, and then any of the balance that we have left, and we have to spend it by December, we're going to put outdoor access points on our buildings, because then that'll be sustainable over time, so we can start, moving learning outdoors anytime, even post-COVID.
So I'm going to provide updates on a couple different areas. One, financially, we talked a lot about data tonight. One of the things that we're doing, obviously, the fiscal office is tracking a lot of data on the financial impacts of COVID. Not surprisingly, as we talked about a lot, what we're seeing most commonly is increased expenses for cleaning or safety, those kinds of things. Also decreased revenues. We've seen the state cut 6% last year, the same 6% this year. Same thing is happening with our investment revenues are down because interest rates are down. But I did want to give one small piece of good news this week. Our property tax collections are actually up 2% compared to the same time last year. So that's one positive that we have seen. And we'll have a more thorough report next month when we do our 5-year forecast and look at that. Second thing I wanted to highlight is I did want to thank Tamara Earl and the child nutrition team. You probably have read that they did sign up the district up to participate in the USDA federal free breakfast and lunch program. So that's just a nice opportunity for our families and students through the end of this calendar year to provide those additional food options for kids. Obviously, they are like every other department. They've done a lot of adapting and changing to get ready for the school year, and even for the first few weeks as they're adjusting to how things are working. That program just started yesterday, but already they've seen most of the change in the middle school and the high school, doubling the number of breakfast lunches or breakfast meals that have been sold, and also in the high school a 30% increase in lunches. So again, just a nice opportunity for kids, and we appreciate their flexibility and support in providing that.
A couple quick highlights as well. One is, a lot of people are appreciative of the data. Christine is the one that actually makes the magic happen behind the scenes for the data. I just hit update on the clicker to make sure the data is updating. We say, hey, what do you think about this or that? And she somehow does the magic behind the scenes to make that happen. So thank you for making that so easy for us to look at. Because honestly, I can take a snapshot, send it to the governor, send it to the health department, and it's that quick and it's real time. So we're able to actually make decisions better than we ever have in terms of just a data-driven decision. So we really appreciate you being able to do that and doing that for us. Want to recognize, our staff, and I know Maria is here representing, our teaching staff and certified staff, and just appreciate the flexibility. And I know, Maria and I work a lot through lots of different situations, but it's nonstop change this year. And so we've asked our teachers, we refer to the culture guide often, right? And so the culture guide, we say, when things are going really well and it's really easy, it's a lot of fun. It's like, hey, E plus R equals O. But when things are hard, and this year a lot of things are hard, we have to talk a lot about deep culture. Like, what does it really mean to live that out? And so I so appreciate just having even Maria as a partner to bounce ideas off of, or my team to think that through, and just watching our teachers really live that out, because it's not easy. And you hear from our parents, I think, Christine, that's really insightful to see. We have parents that are really anxious and stressed out about their kids' situation with quarantine, However, you can hear in their words, they're so appreciative. They know that we're working hard to live out what we believe here, and they understand it's a little bit out of our control at this moment, but they still appreciate that even in the moment of hard times. So just want to recognize that and thank everybody for that. And thanks to Charles as our board president, and when you sit in that seat, and all of you have had some of those different phone calls, I know you're taking a lot of pressure and a lot of those emails of do this, and I appreciate you all being willing to brainstorm with us through, because this is probably more than we've ever asked you to do on a regular basis. Here's a lot of ideas, here's what we're thinking, and you become a nice sounding board for all of us to just be in touch with our community. So I appreciate that you're always willing to do that. And I know it feels nonstop right now, so I feel like I'm always giving you a call, Charles, and saying, hey, I've got about 7 more updates for you that you should be aware of. and it's pretty much on a regular routine right now. So thank you for your time and energy in that.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, everybody, on the administrative updates. Board commentary. Desiree?
Well, my commentary was I wanted to thank the parents for coming in, but I'm glad I had the opportunity to thank them before they left for the day, or for the evening. Maybe just to reiterate what Todd said about Jonathan leading through this time, I can't imagine a more effective leader in this situation, and someone who is as kind as him, but purposeful as him, and like he said earlier, persistence, and it's based on fact and data, but the delivery is also very, very important. So you wouldn't have the ears you have without the personality that you have. So I feel like our school is beyond blessed to have you in your role, especially during this time.
Thanks, Desiree. Matt?
Yeah, I think it could sound repetitive to thank all the people who have worked so hard to have a fantastic start to a year in such a crazy time. But I want to hit pause and not only thank our staff, all of our staff, from our bus drivers, our custodians we've talked about, our nurses we talked about tonight, our educators for sure, and our administrators, but to speak to the level of talent that we have here, talent and dedication, that the fact that the beginning of the year has gone so smoothly and been so non-disruptive is all you need to know about the quality of the people and the dedication and heart of the people we have working for our students in this district. Because, I mean, think about all the changes that you've had to reinvent education in every aspect. From Amy, when you talk about everybody feeling like they're a first-year teacher, yeah, because the things that were muscle memory before are just, there's no muscle memory for this year, right? And so we just thank you for your dedication, and just want to express a deep level of pride that we are here to support you, and just to set you up and give you what you need to do your job. And I know our community recognizes that, but we should never pass up an opportunity to stop and pause and think about that. And for our students and families, a couple people made the point tonight that this is really heavy stuff, and really real stuff for their families that they're dealing with, and yet to a person tonight they did recognize that we are doing a lot of work and really good job. We know that it's a burden, and we know our students. We've talked a lot about the masks, and we wondered how it would turn out for our students. And our students are rolling with it, right? I mean, they're doing such a fantastic job of adapting and being flexible and all the things that we talk about Comet Kids being able to do. But I want to take a second just to remind folks that we're not measuring success here just on how closely we approximate the regular learning experience. We recognize that being successful in that way and things coming off without hitches is one thing. But we know that all of this is taking a toll on all of us. And so the mental health pieces, we talked about it in terms of quarantine tonight, but I think about my own kids. They're doing a great job with dealing all of this and being flexible, but I do know, because sometimes I'm home, and when they walk through the door, when kids come home and they've held themselves together all day, what that looks like and how that impact is coming out for them. And so I know that that's true for all of our families and our students, but our staff too and our educators. And I just want to remind you that we're here for that too. That is a big piece of what we're doing. And I know that you've had conversations about what that looks like now, but if you need help, if you need support in any of those ways, please reach out, because we don't want to pretend like not only do we have to do this well, but we also don't have to feel bad about it. No, this is hard, and it's okay to recognize that. And so I just wanted to put that out there. But thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Matt. Kevin?
Well, it's been said. I'll just add a big thank you to everybody who's going above and beyond to try to make this as effective as a year as it can, and certainly appreciate Jonathan's vigor in which he goes after the changes that are necessary. And I would just add from this table and in the record to ask Governor DeWine to actually accept the data. Charles mentioned it, but you know, he didn't go as far. It's interesting, it's just us in here, but if you think about it, given what's gone on the last 6 months, there's no data that exists of constant connection with people like a school, and we happen to be the size we are, means it's new data. And in this kind of environment where data's politicized and data's just lost and uncertain and unclear and nobody really knows and it changes from one day to the other, here is Jonathan with a fresh, you know, kind of new data that can help people who have been conjecturing for the last 6 months make choices and decisions that are in the best interest of communities. And here we are. And I think it's a key time, and I think the governor needs to act and accept that. And I think he can do it with the same consistency that he's been carrying on all along in the way he's addressed situation in the state. So I'd add my voice there, and I know all of us are ready to help as we can, but it's really important right now so that we can continue on without disruption inside our schools. So thanks.
Thanks, Kevin. Connie?
Yeah, I'll just be brief. I think I've had opportunity to pretty much speak my mind tonight, but I do want to reiterate the board's appreciation and my personal appreciation to everyone who touches our district and our students, at families, taxpayers, teachers, custodians, nurses. We are very, very fortunate to live in a community where people are, as Kevin said, going above and beyond. They're not really doing it because we have told them they have to or we expect it, but I'm not surprised we're doing it, and we're doing it so well. I just want to thank everyone for their level of commitment to our district.
Thanks, Connie. I'll reiterate, starting kind of from the earliest administrator commentary, the Camacho family and the Curran family, our hearts go out to you both. Moeller, the University of Dayton community, we've been in, unfortunately, similar situations, losing a member of the community before it felt like it was their time, and our hearts and our prayers are with you all. The thoughts on the quarantines and on the data that we've collected, I think, have been expressed at length tonight, so I won't rehash all of that, but we'll echo the call to action that our parents had asked for here, that Kevin articulated as well, and that I think most of our board shares. We have a unique data set here. To those that proclaim, trust the data, trust science, we've got the science. So we ask that the people who are making the policies that are, kind of guiding our lives right now, that they take a look at that. We appreciate the dialogue that they've engaged with us so far, and questions, doubts, things like that, absolutely engage us on that. But in the meantime, we are very concerned about the effects, in addition to, you know, COVID-19 and the spread that these behaviors and things that we are obligated to take on are having, not just on our kids in the communities, not just on their families and parents, but on our teachers and our staff and administrators as well. You know, the tracking of all this data, the corralling of quarantine lesson plans and things to keep kids in line and on task while they're out is a tremendous strain on our organization and on our workforce, and we recognize that, and we are seeking ways to ameliorate, ease that burden for everybody, but also keep people safe. And I think what we have observed firsthand is that, you know, we're not telling people it's time to take the masks off. We're not telling people it's time to, you know, huddle together and hug or things like that. You know, we think that these measures are showing to be effective and they're working, and so we are going to continue, you know, with them. But we don't want to, you know, again, we don't feel like we need to shut everything down. We don't need to send everybody home when, you know, one person gets sick. So we're really hoping that we can use our platform to affect change and keep everybody in school, or, you know, healthy as well, in school and healthy. And with that, I've got nothing else to add. So item number 26, adjournment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.